Peace, shalom, everyone. Greetings and welcome. Welcome to our fellowship.
Yeah.
If you're in the space, if you're in the chat, let us know. Go ahead, Tata.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Hey there, Marjorie Marie Art. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Chief Yuya, and welcome into the space.
Greetings, greetings, Margie Marie. Excuse all my. All right. Okay. So we are. We're
On
on the evening of What's that? I missed it. I missed
I
it.
said we are on time.
Yes. Oh, listen, we were sitting there with.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
excited.
Yeah, and Margie Marie, we saw you because you just did, because you were on the in the chat already. Thank you for being in space and sharing Sabbath with us. We are, it is a pleasure to be here and to be able to host and share and build with you all. Sabbath is a very, very special time, and to be able to pause and share it with those who are part of your community, who hold the same standards, who understand. They understand the journey and the walk. Oh, did you understand the journey and the walk? Really?
Yes, yes. Okay, so we're 1 minute late. We got you. Shalom, Jason. Thank you for joining us this evening. And it is such a pleasure to be in this space, especially after experiencing Ramadan. And I was extra, it was real special for me this season. So I hope everyone had a chance to enjoy some parts of it and acknowledge just such a sacred time that was for us to learn so much about not only ourselves, but our relationship with the Most High. Speaking of, we should probably open up our space just giving thanks to the Most High for just allowing us to have a time of fellowship and to be able to build. And more than anything, to just be have the privilege to be poured into by such a wonderful community. And we thank our Chief Chetna, Chief Yuya, for providing this space for us and for giving us a voice that we can share, that can actually feed others and help others to grow and come to an understanding of how important it is that we make the right choices on this journey. So just welcome everybody. Welcome, Awful Woman, Ima Yakira Eden, and everyone else as you just come on in and join us for this time of just really reflecting on our walk. So let's get with it.
All right. So we're going to open with Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 8. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Most High, Yeshua, because you know that your labor in the Lord or in Yeshua HaMashiach is not in vain. So, and we chose this. I chose this to open up today because it's so connected. It's connected to the concept of being chosen versus called, and also just understanding a large part of the all the sisters are here with me. We are all listening for Anu Woman, over here. Okay, okay. Um, yeah, we thought that it connected as well to the affirmative that spoke to Job's trials, right? It spoke to Job's journey, his walk. And, like ultimately we saw when Akoti Yafe shared that darkness to redemption peace, or darkness to light peace, we see him walking, but yes, yet faltering. And so today's message is really about holding on to righteous culture, holding on to the health and strength of this dual idea of walking. It's not just a walk, which is your journey, but we also want to encourage you to walk, like physically walk, right? And so we thought that this would be great to open up with. When you think about walking, I paused and I said, I wonder if we ever noticed how much walking Yeshua HaMashiach has done, right? When we read the Greek Testament, we see him moving, walking. Of course, we do see him mount a donkey, and uh, you do see him moving in different ways, but walking is consistent. Um, you do not see many times where he's mounting a horse and moving in that way. He does get on a boat eventually. We see that, but there is a physical, mental, and spiritual connection to the idea of walking. And that walking is not just about the physical body, it has a lot to do with sacrifice, it has a lot to do with moving and keeping yourself moving, always physically active. And that activity actually connects to, being inspired and being in spirit and just constantly moving and finding the new group of people to work with, a new group of people to bring the message to. Um, and I think the walking is also connected to modeling. So, one of the quick things we wanted to ask was, have you ever noticed how much walking the Christ does in the New Testament? And if you have, can you share? And what are your thoughts on that idea of his walking? He kept walking nonstop.
Right.
All
One of
right.
the things that came to mind as I was listening, when you talk about walking, I think about, and everything brings me back to community. So I was thinking about that sometimes he's walking alone and sometimes he has the company of the 12, and it's always so amazing to me in the times he chooses to walk alone or be alone. Like when he did the 40 days in the desert and how he walked and he was alone through that, but yet because he was filled with the spirit of the most high, because that was a part of who he wasn't really alone. And it makes me think about when he's walking with the 12, and then there's always a time when he'll separate. Sometimes he'll pull three or two aside to walk with him, you know but there's always a time. Sometimes he's walking alone, sometimes he's walking with others. But and in our walk, there's a time when we just have to walk through some stuff on our own, that inner work we have to do, and the attitude we have when we're doing that work. And then there's times when we have the support of a community that always comes alongside to encourage and to strengthen you. And that's what one of the beautiful parts of being a part of a community is knowing, there's always somebody that's going to come alongside and help you, out, as you may seem to trip and stumble and fall, you know, and that's also part of our walk. And that was part of Yeshua's walk as well. So that's what it made me think about.
Thank you. If there's anyone else willing to share, well, we would like you to please share, reciprocate in the space, right? This is a space of reciprocity. We hold that as a standard in our new. So, we would like you to share some of your thoughts, your considerations when you think of Yeshua HaMashiach walking and that movement and what it represented to you. But we do know a journey is a walk of spirit, right? We know that it is a journey that we walk in where we could correlate it to being called, right? We know we had that conversation about being called and chosen, and we're all called. We're all called to walk and live a righteous life and be a model of what it is to follow righteous law, right? To be followers of the way, right? That's a part of what it is to walk. Um, It's a righteous and honorable walk. But sometimes we do get weary. Sometimes we do, turn off the path. And, this evening is encouragement, right? Very much similar to Hebrews, right? I want to pull on the perseverance we see um, highlighted in Hebrews 12:1. Here we have, some people say Paul wrote it, but this is a book of the Greek Testament, and what's happening at the time is that Christians are being persecuted. They're being persecuted and pressured to renounce their walk, right? Um, and maybe there are other things and other cultures that's more enticing to them. Mm. So the encouragement this evening is very much similar to that of Hebrews 12:1. It is one of perseverance. It is one of encouragement to hold on to the faith as tightly as possible. My grandmother used to say, "I'm holding on tight, girl." So yeah, oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Hebrew 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles." Ooh, everything that hinders, barrier, blockage, prevent you from walking as you are called to, preventing you from accomplishing what you were chosen to. Hmm, right? He said, turn away from it, throw it off, throw off everything. So and I know this Ramadan has been a walk in itself. And that walk has given us, and many of us, I know, an opportunity to see what those things are that we have to throw off because they hinder us. It says, all of those, everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. They talk about entanglements, right? But I think of, when I hear entanglement, I think of something that could ensnare you, right? It's like a trap, right? I think about an animal being hunted, and it doesn't even know it's being hunted because there's a snare sitting right there, waiting for it to just run right on into it without knowing or paying attention. That can be us in many ways, you know. 12:1 continues, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. That is, I thought of the difference between called and chosen again in that last sentence, because the race has been marked out for you. So what you gonna do? It's been marked out for you. What you gonna do? Take the baton, run in reverse? What's happening? Are you gonna take a detour for the benches and become a spectator? What's
That's
going on?
and it's so funny because even when the brothers were sharing, and I was thinking about Moses, you know, and Moses was chosen from birth. He was saved when a lot of the men children were killed, and he ended up in Pharaoh's house. He grew up, living like those that oppressed his people. And it was something, when he realized there was something nagging and calling someone right, even though you would have thought that his lifestyle was that of one of leisure. And I mean, he was in the Pharaoh's house, and it was so, but he was called for something else. He was chosen. And even when he ran away from Egypt, and when he was told to go back to Egypt, look at all the excuses he made. I'm a man who can't speak. How am I gonna go and talk to Pharaoh? I don't speak well. And even when he was being equipped by the Most High, he was still, lacking in his own ability. And that's the thing that in this walk that I've been on in a new, I'm realizing how equipped, I've been given the tools, I've been given the equipment. I can come up with all the excuses not to measure up, not to live up. And I can get caught up in social media, in that sin that so easily besets us, and it's so easy to do. You can do it in the blink of an eye and be caught up. And that was one of the things I learned about myself during Ramadan, is how undisciplined I was, and to when I actually had to talk myself through things like, you don't need that snack. And even when we got off last night, I thought, or even today, I thought, I could have a snack, I could eat, but I didn't choose to, because what I learned during Ramadan is I don't need it. It's an unnecessary want. And especially when you start looking at the things that harm you, that entangle you, you know, you can lose your footing so easily. So yeah, I think about the excuses that I make for not being able to walk it out. And that's exactly what they are, excuses. Because when you don't make excuses, it's so much easier to see the way. And when you talk about walking in the spirit, I think about walking in the way, because just like we all enjoy the the watch party on Sabbath, I keep thinking about that young man. I went back and watched it, again, and I thought how easily he was distracted by his own personal desires and pleasures that gave him no satisfaction in the long run. In the long run, it brought more destruction than it did pleasure, and it brought more unhappiness than it did anything else. So, you know, keep walking. I keep thinking of how important that is, because, yeah, we're going to stumble and fall. And yeah, we're going to have things that's going to throw us off. But it's so important to get up and keep moving. You know, there's a scripture that says that it's not given to the strong or the swift, but it's given to the one that endures to the end. So we have to keep going. We have to, you know, and that's what I'm finding so much pleasure in, because it was a time that I would have not kept walking, and there was times I didn't, that I threw my hands up and I thought, and it's such a waste of time, you know. But when you can wake up every day and you have a purpose, you're gonna keep walking no matter what. You fit to walk through this mess, and there's a satisfaction and a joy in that. So
it makes me think of the idea of walking, how connected it is to feet, and the fact that our feet move, but our feet, they don't move on their own accord. Well, some, if your foot hot, maybe. I know people used to say that, but yeah, your foot hot, you can't stay home, girl. Right, so you have to, yeah. Don't be hot foot, okay? Take yourself home, young ladies, stay home. Um, but I think about the fact that the feet is governed by the brain, is governed by the mind, So, and then it leads us to think this idea of keep walking. You can't keep walking. You will probably give up if you have not thrown off what hinders from the mind, right? If we have not, really feasted on the word of the Most High, and really, because I think about that piece in your walk today where you said, I could have a snack, and something else kicked in and was like, you don't need it. No, you don't. Do you really need it? So there's one thing happening. We see the idea of walking. Yes, it's moving forward, and we're going to jump into the chat in just a little bit. But we have to think about what dictates that, right? And that brings us back to the bill that you did on what's dictating you, what's controlling you. Was it what's controlling you? Yes, yes, very much so. So if something else is controlling you, not your doctrine, not your culture, then your walk will not reflect culture. And I think that that's directly connected to the point Master Menelek just made. He said Yeshua went from place to place and carried wisdom, healing with him, right? Every interaction he had showed those around him how to walk and treat each other. Well, we're called to be and move and walk as Christ. We're we're called to do that, right? And so it's important for us to not even think. I don't even think we need to think about it. We just need to do it. But it's important to think about how we move, what our walk looks like, is an example to many. We're modeling, and not in the silly sense where, yeah, you're going down the road, everybody's looking, but people do look. They do look, but they're looking for the standard. They're looking for a standard in terms of how to interact, how to speak, how to project kindness. I think all of those things are important to consider. Just off of Hebrews 12, one verse. Thank you, Master Menelek, for that. Thank you very much, because that walking and carrying wisdom and carrying healing, and modeling, I think is a really big part of just the concept of walking.
And to backtrack just a little bit, Ima Yakira Eden, she made a statement. She said he walked through the wilderness, through the towns, to the wedding. And as I was looking at that, I think about how on our walk, there's times we're in the wilderness, and there's times when we're surrounded by, people that are outside of our community that are watching us, and we may not realize someone's watching us. We don't know who all might see us on YouTube and then, I might be at the store, where no one from my community is around. But maybe that one person who happened to see us on social media, and the way I behave is going to speak for if I'm just here talking or if I'm living the lifestyle. So you never know who's watching you. There were people watching Yeshua the whole time. When I think about what was his name, the tax collector, was it the one that was up in the tree, the little man, and he said, Zachariah, was it Zachariah? And he told him, come down from there. I'm gonna eat at your house today. But he's watching from up in the tree. So
That is so short.
yeah.
Couldn't see. Needed an aerial view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he thought he'd be the last person that, Yeshua would say, I'm going to your house to have dinner today. And so I've come to understand how important our walk is. And sometimes even more so, not that I'm trying to convince anybody that knew me before I started walking or learning to walk in righteousness, but there are those too who are saying, they're the same old person. Remember when they used to do that? But my walk is not for them. My walk is for the Most High, because no matter where I'm at, there's no such thing. What does Psalms 119 say? If you go to the deepest part of the ocean, you are there. And the highest parts of the heaven, you are there. Or is that 139? And it's like, in what I do in the dark is like light to you. So it's always, important that what motivates your walk is something that you're not playing with, and you have to think about your heart and your mind and where that's at, because that was another thing that I was constantly drawn back to for myself as we went through Ramadan. I think a thought might have to stop and go, where did that come from? Why do you feel that way? Why are you thinking that thought? And really have to, sometimes you have to investigate things to discharge them. But sometimes you already know something ain't right and you don't even have to think twice about it. You like, that ain't right. Get rid of that right now. Don't even think it. You know what I mean? So these are all the things that are motivating and that are directing our walk, and there some of them are buried so deep down in us, and we act on automatic pilot so often that when you have a time like Ramadan, to where your focus is on your own behavior, your own thoughts, your own movements, you get to see a lot. And I was like, oh, how'd you get this far? A mess, So and when I say it was a beautiful experience, we'll talk more about the difference between happiness and joy, later, because I wasn't happy at all as
Even
I
during
was.
Ramadan?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, when I say I wasn't happy, yeah, there was so many things that was surfacing. Yeah, there's no way I can sit here and say, oh, I was so happy to. No, because I was looking in a mirror and it went a little deeper. But what I can say is I did have joy as we went through Ramadan. And that was a big difference for me. So, and happiness and joy are two different things, but we'll get back to that as we, in just a bit. But I know
Me,
Marjorie Marie, she said, you don't need it. There's so much you can accomplish without distractions. You know what? And we allow distractions. Matter of fact, we welcome them. When I'm getting up in the dawning and I'm thinking, okay, after meditation, I need to get my movement in. If it's cold and I don't want to roll out of bed right away, I might say, well, before I get up, let me look at the weather. Let me see. It's a distraction because no matter what the weather is, I still have a routine. And the weather's not going to make or break or stop me from doing that. But, just we choose distractions most of the time, to throw us off because we don't really want to do it. We know what we're supposed to do. But yeah, she says, yeah, definitely we look for those things that bring us comfort. Yeah, yeah, because when you're doing the work, it's not comfortable. It's not, because you're dealing with the stuff that is dysfunctional, that's destructive, and it all starts here. It all starts with us, and that's where the walk begins. Your walk has everything to do with you.
yeah, I think it's significant. I think those two are connected. Your statement, Margie, Marie, are about the fact that we look for things that bring us comfort. We, the lower man, look for things that bring us comfort. The Christ part of ourselves, we look to walk in the wilderness, right? Because you think about how much one can, I don't know about the details about what he was wearing on his feet. I don't know. Don't come in the chat and ask those questions because I don't know. But I do know what it is when you see wilderness. Wilderness, that means is, they aren't, people aren't necessarily, it isn't a high populated place, right? We're talking having to move and function without navigation, right? At least navigation based on our concept, our modern concept of it. We're talking about the potential for danger, right? Well, that depends on who you are. Some people, a bug is a threat to their life versus, another animal. I just think about the wilderness and all of those things come to mind. Again, but he moved in the wilderness and sure footedly as well. And so we're called to move in the wilderness, which can be considered Babylon. It can be considered where we go and how we function in the world as well. And we have to be cautious and aware so that we don't take the that we do take the path less traveled, which would be the wilderness, that we don't embrace comfort and just continue to walk the path that we know is wrong, but it feels good, you know. I think about Galatians 6:9 as well. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So that's directly connected to the Hebrew 12:1, in that we should throw off all things that hinder us, throw off sin as well too. And so throwing off those things means that we're embracing good. We're embracing respect. I'm not saying accept the person who speaks to you like you're a dog. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, there are times when you have to recognize what that is and what the energy that person is coming with, and kill it, right? And the way you kill it is not always very physical. It's not necessarily confrontation. Um, this is also speaking of just being kind, right? And understanding that you will reap that harvest at the proper time. It's not proper time, does not mean when you put it on the calendar and you said, okay, this is when XYZ is supposed to happen because I've been doing this all this time. So now, all these meditations and these affirmations, they should be paying off right now. Um, it's not going to happen that way. Is it set up to? Certainly, but the way you're looking to see that benefit it may not appear in that way. Yeah.
That reminds me of Psalms 86:11-17. Train me, God, to walk straight, then I'll follow your true path. Put me together, one heart and mind, then undivided I will worship in joyful fear. And I think of that, and it all starts from what's in you. Your walk is all based on that. And what are we've had podcasts, Chief has had so many podcasts teaching about what we allow to be in our spirit, in our mind, in our heart. I believe the Command of the Day, there's a whole series of the heart and purpose and value and how we see ourselves. And it's all based on how we were trained. And we're asking in Psalms, train me, God. So what is being poured into us is surely going to come out in the way we live, the way we walk, what we believe. And I love when you said it's also being kind. I had a situation happen today, matter of fact, and I was with Aki earlier, and we were in a store, and he had to get something that was locked in the cabinet. So the lady had to come from her register, walk over to where the lockbox was, unlock it, and give him what he needed. And then she kept it, in her hand because you have to pay for that right away. Well, as we were walking back to the register, there was a man, a different, he wasn't melanated, and he said, when you're done, can you, she said, what do you need? So she stopped, you know, and she went and helped him and got him what he needed. So we just, that didn't bother us. We just kind of waited, they could have been shorthanded or whatever. So it was not a big deal when she stopped and got what he wanted. And they talked for a few minutes and we just kind of stood there. And me being, I just kind of, after about a couple minutes, I'm like, okay, because it was another gentleman that was already at the cash register. But Aki looked at me and he said, just be patient, because he saw the look on my face and he knew what I was thinking. He said, Mom, just be patient. Just give her a minute. So I thought, yeah, you're right. So finally, she he after he looked at 4 or 5 different things and read the boxes, he bought one. And as we went to the counter, then what she did after she had us wait, she took and rung his up first. Because Ike was at the counter with his card out and he was ready to pay. She said, "Oh, this is his." And at that point, I kind of looked at her and he looked at me because he knew. I was like, "Really?" And so we just kind of stepped back and let him pay for it. And she kept looking at me. And Aki told me, he goes, "It was that look on your face. You had a look on your face." Well, and I wasn't aware of the look on my face, but he was like, "Fix your face," kind of thing, you know. You got a look on your face. And so I didn't say anything, but I guess that look was there. And then it was his turn, and he went up there, and he was really pleasant, you know. And I'm watching him, you know, because I didn't want to look at her because I was thinking, yeah, you know what you did. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking, but it made me realize you can not, you know, what made it, that shouldn't bother me, in other words. It was one person. And if she chose to take him first, because, they were, I don't know, they were more alike than we were. Um, if she chose to put him in front of us, but I still thought, how rude it was because it was so blatant, you know. But Aki, I just was so, he didn't let it bother him. It didn't, it didn't phase him at all. Matter of fact, he checked me, like, "Fix your face. It's all right. It's not a big deal." And I thought, wow, it really isn't. And that's those little things, the sin that so easily besets us. Maybe that was ego for me, you know. And why can't I allow somebody else to go in front of me? But it was just a thought, because when you talk about being kind and not letting just anything ruffle your feathers, and I could have been tripped up on my walk hadn't my covering, Aki Isaiah, been right there to, check me in the moment, because sometimes we need to be checked in the moment so we could actually see and examine ourselves, But yeah, again, that was part of my daily walk, that I thought, when we get so caught up on the little things, then we fail to pay attention to the things that matter the most. Because one thing I learned during Ramadan, every dawning, I wanted to put Yah's name first as I started my day and give thanks. I don't do that. I didn't do that outside of Ramadan. Yeah, it take me a minute or two eventually as I greet the community and I give thanks, but it wasn't always my first thought. So yeah, I just thought about that as you were speaking.
That thank you for sharing that story. So I mean, there's countless stories of just people losing it randomly for no reason. No reason. I'm not saying if there are cases of injustice that even-handedness shouldn't be applied, and we shouldn't like default to our culture and think about what is right in the moment. But that's when we're dealing with each other. We can't necessarily impose that on another, but we do walk in it. But I think about so many times or instances when we get agitated or flustered over something without really seeing the bigger picture. And all it takes is for you to walk 25 degrees to the right and see the other angle and realize, oh my gosh, this man, maybe he was a veteran. Maybe, and I don't know what the situation was, but I am saying it because I have been in situations where I'm quiet about it, but I question, why is that? And I will. That's me. I'm pausing because I want to see it unfold. because in the unfolding, you actually, it reveals so much that you didn't know a minute ago, or sometimes seconds, you know. And then there are times when it's just like it's wrong, you know. So it's wrong, it's wrong. But there are many times when we're agitated and we want to act on something, and it does throw us off, it hinders us. um so one of the things that you are identifying here is that having the direction of a man is a boundary. It is a boundary. It sets a boundary. So we have a question. What are some of the boundaries that you set, or boundaries that are present in your journey and your walk, that um, keeps you on track? What are boundaries you set so you do not get off track? I actually want to do it the reverse and say, yeah, what boundaries do you
And
on
there
track?
was yeah, on track, or that you set so you don't get off track. And I think of all the times when I look back when I didn't have that guidance or that direction. And I even thought about, what if he wasn't with me today? Would I had said something? Or, so going forward, I know I'll be watching and more cautious of how I respond and react. Because, like you said, there could have been something going on with that man that I didn't know anything about, and it was such a small thing, you know, um, something like that. Aki Darian, he made a comment in the chat. He said, I see Christ walking as a symbol to constantly challenge our carnality, yes, and keep ourselves light. Walking a great distance is a challenge and calls for strong spirit to make it the designation. Yes, that is so true. Um, and it's that, when you say and keep ourselves light, it's like our hearts in the new way. It talks about our hearts being as light as a feather, so that it's not going to prevent us from ascending upward, you know? And yeah, if we let everything weigh us down and beset us, not only is it going to create us to be heavy, but we don't reflect the light that's being poured into us as women, even. So yeah, there was a time I might have rejected such guidance, but I was so thankful for that guidance today. From my covering, to say, fix your face. It's not that serious, and it caused me to pause to think about the fact that, what, it's not. It's not that serious. What am I doing? Why am I putting energy in that? So, walking a great distance is a challenge and calls for a strong spirit to make it the destination, to the destination,
To
where
the
you're headed. Yeah, where you're going. And we know in anew that we have a purpose, and we have to be ready for the long haul. Even when it comes to, I know you mentioned about walking and the health benefits of that as well. I know that since I'm staying true to my walking a mile to 2 miles daily, that not only do I sleep better and I feel better, but during that walk, I also have time to meditate. And so my body is not just being getting a workout, but my mind, is also getting a chance to reflect and to think and to focus on those things that would beset me possibly if I didn't take time out. So yeah, it does take it is a challenge, and but it's a good challenge. So, Toda for that, Akidirian.
Thank you. And the destinations. Sometimes the destination is always, it's always shifting. It's not just, oh yeah, I have this one. destination, this one place I have to be. Today's destination for you was, pause and consider, you know, pause and control. Um, Another day, the destination may be, you know, address or figure out how to address what is a glaring issue, a glaring issue, sorry. Um, I don't want to use the word diplomatically because it feels very, but respectably, right? In a respectable manner. And I definitely think that, yeah, I definitely think that our destination is constantly shifting in a sense. Today, this is what it is, and that destination, that, um, uh,
No, one of the things as you were talking, when you talked about destination, we also have to consider people outside our community. And sometimes if people are having a bad day, they want you to have a bad day. Sometimes people do things to you just to get a reaction and a negative reaction so they can say, see, I know how they gonna act, or I know, you know what I mean? And to not give them the pleasure of dictating how you should or could respond is also a form of, reflecting that light in your walk. Because how many times have you heard somebody say, I remember, I've seen it more than once, where I was in church and with a lady, and we were ushers, and we were in one of these huge mega churches. And it just so happens when we left church, um, there was this one supermarket right across the street. I'd always grab whatever I was, last minute thing I needed for dinner. We both happened to go into the same store, and there was someone outside, and this homeless person said something to her, and she literally cussed him out. And we just left church. She had on her church clothes, and her little cross pendant was on her lapel, and I thought to myself, wow, what a, if, it speaks about when we represent the Most High, sometimes we're the only Christ that someone might see, in our walk. But wow, I thought to myself, and she got embarrassed when she turned around and saw me. And, of course, I didn't say anything to her. I just kind of looked at her, and I thought to myself, wow, that was really mean. You said some ugly things to that man just for asking you for some change, you know? And I thought, wow. But yeah, it's
so part of the issue is that we recoil and we're surprised when someone does that because they're a church person or because they're wearing a cross, and we all know what those symbols are, and we know that they're not directly a reflection of Elohim and a reflection of the Hebrew way that we know, the Hebrew Testament speaks of, and the life and charity is an important part of that. So a behavior like that, it should not arouse surprise at all. Um, yeah, because we already know that your walk is not my walk, but you're also walking the wrong path, right? You're also walking the wrong path. Um, Ima Yakirian says, our time woman ensures I am bound to my culture. Yes, and it's almost like a fortress. Dressing a particular way is a fortress. Definitely a boundary. There are some things or some experiences that you just will not have. You will not encounter. All right, because it is a cloaking, right? The clothing is a cloaking, the attire is a veil of sorts, and it's almost like it's almost like it carries a list of rules. When you see it, it's like, oh, don't do this, don't do that, hold yourself, competitive here and behave yourself. Don't even go in that direction. Don't ask this woman questions. Don't ask her anything. Just move so she could. And I'm not saying that in a mean way, but this is some of the reactions and even the responses. And you're right. A part of it too is it represents a certain standard. And so people do kind of like you were saying, or when you heard the woman say this, you identified her as a church a person of the church and wearing a certain symbol. So you're obviously connecting that at that point in your journey to a standard, right? A certain standard of mannerism and behavior. And the same is true when we wear a certain attire. There is a certain standard that others expect of us. Thank you for putting that. Um,
I think they
one
want to
second.
join.
Yes, but I'm not able to, for some reason I can't find a way to put it in the chat. I'm on my phone and my phone just does weird things. It's ready. Okay, yeah. So no, I just
Yeah. You know, when you were speaking of dress, I actually go to a gym in the every, in the dawning. And it's so funny because the way I dress now going to the gym compared to the way I used to wear my pants and stuff going to the gym, um, it's so, I don't know, most of the young women there, and it's not many there in the dawning when I go, or even the older women, they're half naked. They want to wear these little half tops and these little bitty shorts to the gym. And I'm really thankful because I found some really decent attire for myself to go, because I don't do a lot there basically, but I get my hour workout really good. And I've just noticed the way the young men, when I come in that are at the counter, um, they just always smile and they greet me. And it's just such a real pleasantry because I know, because my head is covered, because I'm dressed a certain way, there's a respectful greeting that I receive from every one of the young men that are at the counter when you come into the gym. Whereas, some of these other women, I stop to think, of the way that young women dress nowadays. It's I don't know. I had a brother-in-law tell my daughter one time. He says, "Let me tell you something." He said, "I like a woman who wears clothes that I have to imagine what might be there." He said, "I don't want to see it. You just blew the whole thing, you know, when you come out naked." So, but anyway, I just wanted to add that. Hey
yeah.
there, Koti. Hi, Ima.
Y'all having the best time.
Look at
Ever.
the
So
little
far,
kids.
the best time ever. Let's swap places. The best thing you could have done was come along.
They can't see.
No, it's very dark. It's just teeth. It is just teeth. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. We wanted to just come in and liven, add some additional darkness to this here.
Is your connection messed?
It is. It is. It's actually, yeah, it's lagging.
BS ass phone.
They can hear you.
Okay, I'm cheap.
Oh, so what's your
Say
say
Well,
something?
go with it. Come on, bring it on.
Shalom. So when can y'all hear us?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So as you were sharing about, we've got some great camera work happening here. Give thanks. As you were sharing about boundaries, so we had so many that we were kind of thinking we should just come on here. So I'll elaborate on the one that I shared, and then we can kind of go around. with regard to the boundary of our attire, I think it applies in many ways, and I would agree with Koti Maria. You said it's like a hedge, so it establishes lines, like clear lines. And what I found is that, and I know the sisters have touched on this many times, it can it communicates a particular message. And as Chief Yuya has said in several instances, we don't see news like when people are maintaining their culture, they're less likely, and they're clearly set apart. That is another boundary. They're less likely to fall victim to a lot of what tends to happen around them, even as far as acts of violence or police brutality. And it's because they're maintaining their culture. And so even, I won't even call them law enforcement, but just ICE, I think that's one way I've heard it called. I don't know. But yeah, as coined by Chief Yuya himself, they actually
It's in the 14 keys.
thank you. It's in the 14 keys.
We can hear you.
As written by Chief Yuya. Yeah. God, we're gonna pass it. But again, that's one way of setting a boundary. It's like, I'm not a part of this. And so therefore then you're less likely to even be pulled into the abuse oftentimes.
Who's next?
Yeah, so just to kind of touch on what Emily Eden just spoke about, I just think about like the laws that are set forth in the Anu Way. So like a boundary is that we have our hair covered. So right there, it's like, okay, well, the boundaries are already laid out. So yeah, that's all I have.
Oh God. Peace. Shabbat shalom.
We ain't hearing them.
Hold it together. Hold it together.
It is.
Okay.
I forgot.
We were talking about boundaries and different boundaries we've set for ourselves. So you said that you turn
That's why she can't remember.
you turn your ringer
Oh yes,
off.
my phone.
She ain't got no boundaries.
To keep to not be distracted from phone notifications, phone calls, text messages, or anything. I'll put my phone on silent, and then I won't turn it back on until I finish like my dawning activities and I'm ready to take phone calls or messages and return messages and emails. So that's one of the boundaries. Ways I set a boundary.
Leave it. Get in there.
She's in there. It's dark though.
Boundaries. 2 feet all around. Boundaries.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
that makes me think of the foot chakra though.
Really?
Yeah, the feet all around.
It's so dense.
Yeah, so the foot chakra and how it aids in keeping us bound and rooted and grounded, right?
Sure.
That's a
Sure. Now we're walking. Keep walking. Sure.
okay.
So you stay back. Give me 50 feet.
Don't laugh at us. Don't laugh at us,
I
Sister Marie.
wasn't there for the first part
That
of
was
the
very
conversation.
close.
But boundaries. No, when they were discussing, sorry.
So maybe we're gonna mute out now.
I didn't even get to go.
Oh,
You just
Go
But I
have
was
thoughts
never.
collected.
I shouldn't have asked the question again.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Oh, we're putting it on. It's on there. It's there. What are some boundaries you set so you do not get off track? Oh my.
What are the boundaries?
Okay. What are some boundaries you set so you do not get off track? I do not fraternize with everyone. That's a good answer.
It's so
Good answer. Good answer.
I just
Okay. Peace. Peace.
Peace. Thank you.
Please, sorry about that. My phone was going off. They touch on some excellent points. The idea of head covering, the boundary. Again, so important because we learn that our hair actually receives and downloads. So the covering of the hair is important. The woman's hair is a glory and a glory to her man. So yeah, like everybody out there doesn't need to behold your glory. That's something that's sacred. Um, sorry. And laws, I think who mentioned laws? Ima Sequoia. She mentioned the laws as an important boundary. It definitely is because it it creates boundaries for us, but it also creates boundaries and standards for engagement, with others. I know one of the things that we don't do is go out and holler and call each other out loud across the street. And, we have to, it's less dignified. It's not feminine when you're out there heckling and hollering. But this is not just for one, it's for all because there's a dignified way of, doing things. And if I don't engage in that behavior, people understand that there's a standard. They therefore won't do the same to me. They won't see me down the street and holler my name. They'll know, oh no, you can't do that with her because she gonna ignore you. She gonna act like she ain't heard you. She haven't seen you because we don't behave like that. No. Uh, take yourself across the street and greet me, that's the right way. That's the right way, and there are just so many. The boundaries of the laws of um food, what foods do we eat? I think that's such a deep boundary because I know hung up on many people get hung up on food, and that being a downfall. It may cause them to stop their walk, or it may throw them off the path. It might be a hindrance or a sin. But those laws actually help to sustain health, And so I guess we could say this topic is about health too, because we're talking about the physical benefits of walking too. But, when we talk about the boundaries of um, the laws in Deuteronomy that lay out what we should and should not eat, think about the high rates of asthma that we have in young people. Um, and their reactions to insects and shrimp. And if you will only dig deep, you will see that there's a direct correlation between those flying insects and the little ones that everybody love to enjoy, the shrimp. Let me not be vague, right? The direct connection, these are old laws. These are all laws, and there is no research to say, oh, wow, to back it up, to say, oh, well, there was research done how many years before the laws came out. No. So there's a knowing, right? And so that's why faith is a knowing. So when we walk in that faith, we keep walking, we know that the laws that are given to us are specific for our health. It's to maintain our bloodline, it's to maintain us as a nation, and comments in the chat. Go ahead, Safta.
No, I was just thinking when you were saying that, I was thinking about it's a reason why it's called unclean. You know what I mean? And when you talk about how it affects the health, shellfish and people are allergic, nuts, people are allergic, so that tells me it might be meant for the intake of maybe another species, an animal species can eat the nuts and whatever, or other fish can eat those shellfish, but it's not for us. And that boundary, when you cross that boundary, like you said, the health issues will cause you not to be able to walk it out. And that's one thing Chief Yuya tells us all the time. When we're not taking care of our bodies, then we're less likely to be able to function and really be a help to our community, in one way or another. I enjoy being able to walk a couple of miles without batting an eye or without huffing and puffing. And there was a time when I could not. because I smoked cigarettes and I ate the wrong foods, and you know, so it's definitely a big difference. Nile Waves in the chat, she talks about boundaries also, and it's something I've had to, I can relate to. She says boundaries.
Nile,
Yeah.
Nile.
Oh,
So
is
that's
it Nile? What did I
yeah,
say? Nile Wave?
Nile. Man.
Yeah. She says, it says, oh, Nile says, I keep social media apps off my phone until I need to use them for a specific purpose. Doing this helps me to be more focused throughout the day. You know, that is, I can't figure out, everywhere I go, I see people sitting and focusing on their phone. If you're at the doctor's in the waiting room, everybody's looking at their phone. Anywhere where they're sitting. I was on a train yesterday, a light rail. Everybody around me was on the phone. And I always try to figure out, what are they looking at? What are they, outside of me being on a flight or a long bus trip and watching a movie on my phone, I don't know what people find so entertaining about constantly looking. I hear people talk about, I have to tell my kids to put the phone down when we're having dinner. You know, again, that's a distraction. That's a distraction.
I think part of the acknowledgement thing is, I think people have to acknowledge the thing that distracts. So we could talk about, like, when you mentioned the women who dress a certain way when they go to the gym, like that's that's their culture. And I'm more than just convinced that's your culture. It is literally a culture, and you choose, and that's what you've chosen. It doesn't mean you can't shift and change, because I'm a model to you. I'm showing you what the righteous way is. I mean, I'm not gonna preach to you, but I am just gonna come up in here and be, and you have you have a choice. But I don't even know if sometimes they think and realize they have a choice. And even with social media, we're talking about it as if it's such a separate entity. It's not. It's literally connected to every single device you have humming in your home. And that device is an interconnected network that is created to keep you locked in. So you could turn off your phone and give thanks, Brother Nile Waves, for sharing that. That's a great tip, because many of us need that. We need that. But when you spoke about the people sitting in the train, the network even feeds off of who's sitting next to whom and what. And there is a documentary on social that speaks on social media, and it goes through the details of how they take advantage by pinging just when they realize you're pulling away from a conversation. There's another notification that pulls up, and it's like, well, why do I even have this notification pinging me for what? Nobody's calling. There isn't a calendar task due, but why is there a notification all of a sudden when I decide, okay, let me turn the volume down and press, exit an app. Then all of a sudden another notification comes up. It is designed to pull us in. And some people, you have to be aware of that and then realize, oh no, I have to make a choice every single time. I wanted us to shift. It's 9:09, and our lives, we have been instructed to to make them an hour. So an hour you have. But before we go, we want you to contemplate this question. What are some treasured moments during your daily walk? Right? Not just, the angsts and the, I want to put my fists up, um, which you shouldn't, because you should have emotional control, men and women alike, right? That's the goal. But what are some treasured moments during your daily walk? And I want you to share some of your moments from this Ramadan. Those treasured moments, go back into the comment section underneath this video and place some of those treasured moments in your daily walk underneath there. If it's a psalm, share it, because let me be honest, you don't know who's gonna read that psalm or read that affirmation or that verse that you use that you think is treasured to you. They may end up using it and it becomes a treasure to them. It becomes a value to them. So don't hold on to share.
That's right. And before we go, I want to leave you with some encouragement, because we talked about your walk, your daily walk, your and what you're looking at and focusing on daily as you walk through, the way, or walk in the spirit. And I mentioned joy and happiness earlier, because on this walk we should all have joy. And it is, joy is something that you learn to have. You don't just automatically go through trials and tribulation and you're joyful. But in Philippians 4:12, Paul says, he says, I've learned to be content in every situation. And joy is an inner peace and a contentment that comes from, I say mine comes from spiritual experiences, and the satisfaction of one's ability to be content no matter the circumstances. Because you can always find out to a way that something, that bad happens, or uncomfortable, or something that makes you unhappy, but there's always another side to it. I had Chief said something to me earlier in the strong about everything has a cost. And it was sad what the cost was, but the good thing that gave me joy is that I was learning to be obedient and to do what I need to do, so that I won't continue to create dysfunction. So, happiness, on the other hand, is something that is, it's created. Happiness is it's a temporary emotion based on an outward circumstance, and that's exactly what it's based on an outward circumstance. But again, we want to go through our walk with joy. And that's just something that I just want to encourage everyone. Get to a place where you're content, with a little, with a lot, because it all starts within. Yes, Akoti Yafe.
Okay, so we are getting ready to close. I Margie Marie Arts comments. And please, Margie Marie, can you place your comment?
I was just getting on to say goodnight because I heard you say you're shutting down.
Wait, did we stop saying stuff?
So there's one last comment. Margie Marie, can you please place your comment in the chat, not the chat, the comment section after we close? I just wanted to quickly share and invite everyone to our new retreat in June. Please sign up for the retreat. We need numbers in order to identify a place, a location, and a time. We will be retreating in Louisiana. All right, everyone. Peace. Good evening. Good night. Was there something else you wanted to add?
Go ahead. Akote Yafe, were you going to say something?
All right. Not closing the live. Peace, everyone. Enjoy your Sabbath.
Peace.